Oh, mate, what a day.
Indeed.
It's been amazing, though.
Yep.
So, everyone, thank you for joining the Northland Artist Conversation. Andrew, great to have you here.
Yeah. Once again, good to be here, bro.
Once again, good to be here. Yeah, wow. So, we've literally just finished up the very first interview.
Yeah. Plain sailing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Man, she was really good, too. What were the parts that you sort of liked about the interview itself or the conversation?
I don't know, me, I'm a bit of a history buff, so to hear about another kind of culture, it was kind of cool as well. How it influenced her, especially with those like telephone book mangas,
Yeah.
It's amazing to see.
And you guys are going to get to see it towards the end of the video. Andrew's referring to these amazing books that come out, and they come out like weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, and where she drew her inspiration from and how that led her down the path, which I just think is amazing.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like I don't have any solid references when it comes to music. So when it comes to an artist and they bring in all their it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and just talking with her as a whole, when we sort of met her beforehand, she's like, I'm really shy, and then as soon as we just sat down, she was so incredibly open, so giving.
For sure.
So thank you very much for tuning in for the first podcast. This is with a wonderfully talented illustrator and graphic designer. Let's sit down and have a conversation with Aki Fukuoka. Welcome to the first Northland Artist Conversation podcast.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me, Mark.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I can't believe that we're actually going to sit down and do this.
I'm getting excited.
I know. So, you were very kind enough to reach out to us a couple of weeks ago, and it's lovely to have you as the first artist to sit down with.
Yes.
There's no pressure, no pressure at all, no pressure. No, everything's going to be completely fine. So, as someone who sort of started this, I think the most interesting thing for me was that you're not known in the community.
No. So I like to stay hidden in I call it studio, but it's really just my office. And I like to just focus on the work and focus on the kids, and that's all I have time for these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how about we sort of talk a little bit about your background, because obviously the viewers aren't going to have sort of any idea as to you. Now, we've got these lovely books here, which should give you some kind of indication. We were chatting prior to sitting down, and Aki's books of the Billie B Brown series have sold over 5 million copies worldwide, which is absolutely phenomenal. And she's worked on a ton of other series as well, and we're going to get through all of this because it was a true blessing and a find to have someone as your books are incredibly well known, and we were talking before, you said they're really well known in Australia.
Yes.
So someone whose work is high profile, but your profile isn't incredibly well known. So we'll cover off some of the basics. Your name is Aki Fukuoka.
Yes.
I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
Thank goodness. And your story as to how you came to be in Northland is incredibly fascinating.
Oh.
Because you're not originally from Northland.
No.
Neither am I.
Oh.
I moved up here from Auckland. I wanted to be closer to my son.
Yes.
So I'm not originally from Auckland. Originally, I'm from Gisborne.
Mm-hmm.
Gisborne, lovely city, great beaches, great surf. Very, very nice. It's a coastal place.
Yes.
So when I was looking at moving up here, Whangarei reminded me of Gisborne.
Yes, very coastal.
Very coastal. That's it. Very true. But you're having had a read of your background, incredibly fascinating, and let's talk about that, because you've been here for a number of years.
Yes.
But you're originally
from Japan. Yes, so
okay.
I was born in Japan.
Yep.
I'm one of 5 children.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in rural mountains of Nagano, in Japan. It's a very It's a city. It's a city. I mean, compared to Whangarei, it's a decent-sized city. But where I was born, it was in the mountains. You could see the Alps in the distance. I've never seen the sea or the beach before. We are surrounded by high mountains, a lot of wild animals, surrounded by bush, and that's And my parents were they really enjoyed music and nature and science and art, and they met while they were going to university.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Dad was studying forestry engineering, and my mum, she was studying animal science. And they were both members of the university's symphony orchestra. Dad was a conductor. I shouldn't say conductor. Rehearsal conductor and a timpanist. Yeah. And Mum was a pianist and also a double bass player. So they met, fell in love, and, had 5 children. So they made sure that they passed on their love for science and art and music onto all of us. Wow.
Yeah. So now your dad being the conductor and playing the timpani, for the people that don't know, the timpani is the really big drum.
Big drum.
Yeah.
So we had to carry those around with us.
Right.
So there'll be 4 sometimes. So we had to have a big van, and my mum's who double bass too. So whenever they had a concert, they'll have to do a couple of trips and
The double bass is the big stand-up one.
Yeah, the big one, the biggest one. Okay. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, now how long were you living in Japan for?
Until I was 7 or 8.
Yep.
8, yes. Then in 1991, family, all of us immigrated to New Zealand to get away from nuclear power station. Yes.
Of course. Okay.
So my parents loved Japan. They loved the people. They lived where they were, but just too many nuclear power stations, and they thought safety first. So they looked on the world map after having, I think it was when they had my sister, the eldest out of the 5 children. Yep. They were already thinking about moving away from Japan, and they looked at the world map and looking at countries that didn't have nuclear power stations. There weren't many to choose from, and they wanted a proper civilized enough country with hospitals and
a first world country. Yeah.
So they were looking on the map and they found New Zealand, and they said, that looks like a decent sized country. So after having the 5th child, Mum flew to New Zealand by herself and did a bit of a look around and go, it's livable. She flew back and go, okay, kids, husband, hubby, we are packing up, we are flying. And back then, there was no internet. There was no way for them to research much about New Zealand. There weren't many books on the country either. I think there were lots about Australia, but a lot of people didn't know where New Zealand was. When I told my primary school teacher that we were moving to New Zealand, they were like, New Caledonia, where is that? And New Zealand, they're like, okay, well, going to take a lot of pictures of kangaroo and koala and send it to us. And we're like, okay. I didn't know anything either. Yep. So
okay. And then when you first moved to New Zealand, was it straight to Whangarei?
Yes, straight to Whangarei.
Wow,
so Mum and Dad, they couldn't speak in English. Yeah. So they came on student visas to Northland Polytech. So they had to study English first.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So I remember landing in Auckland airport.
Yeah.
And everybody were telling us that New Zealand is very rural. So I was expecting a very rural country, but we were flying into Auckland.
Yeah.
And it was at night, and I could see a lot of lights, like cityscape. And I was like, Grandma lied to me. The teacher lied to me. There's a lot of buildings. Grandma even told me I don't have to go to school. Yeah. So I was just like, they lied to me. Then we landed Auckland airport, and I think we taxied to a motel in Whangarei, because we had no other way of getting to Whangarei.
So you guys called a taxi from Auckland airport to Whangarei.
Wow. I don't know if the motel's still there, but it's the one really close to Northland Polytech along Highway 1. Yes, it's kind of close to the park. So we stayed there. It was next to the old Whangarei horse. I'm sure that restaurant's not there.
Hungry. I've been here 6 years. I've never heard of the Hungry Horse.
That was back 32 years ago. But we made it to the motel, and we lived at the motel for, I don't know, I was 8, but I can remember living there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And Dad and Mum, they studied English at Polytech for maybe a term or so till they had to get the TOEIC level 7 or whatever they needed to get the residency.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because they had enough points to get a residency. Dad was an engineer, Mum studied science too, and they had the skills that were required to get the residency as long as they could get English in there. They studied for a term, got the residency, and then and they sent us to Whangarei Primary School, which was right next to the Polytech. So for about a year, we attended there from the motel.
Yeah.
Then we started moving around. Then we rented a house, and then we moved around Whangarei after that quite a lot. Starting at Tikipunga, then Mangapai to Manu, Mangatapere, and and we stayed there for a while. Yes,
nice.
I attended Ramanga Primary School, then Tauraro Area School, and Whangarei Girls High School.
Yeah. Oh, nice. And Mum and Dad still live?
They moved to Parao Bay after the 5 kids have left home. They were like,
they did.
You know, leave. Now they can they can just go anywhere they want. Yeah. They still love Whangarei, so they went to Parao Bay, built a not a small house, but smaller house than they needed.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, lovely area out there.
Yes, they're still there.
I love going to the Parao Bay Tavern.
Yes.
Oh, so good. And when they used to have concerts and stuff there, so good. And the pizza.
Yes.
Love the pizza. I know. Oh, wow. And then, so you obviously ended up at Whangarei Girls High.
Yes.
And you were there until you sort of graduated, right?
Yes.
What were the sort of subjects that you were studying at Girls High?
So like I said, Mum and Dad made sure we appreciated art, science and music. So that's what I did. I picked, when I was at 5th form, which I don't think kids now call it 5th form 5. It must be year 10, 11, 12 or something, NCEA.
I can't work out the years. Yes. My son's in primary school and it's his last year. So it's
the last 3 years. Yes, so year 11, 12 and 13. Yeah, that must be right. So year 11, I chose the 3 science, so biology,
chemistry,
physics, chemistry. I don't know, a lot of people calling it the Asian 5 for some reason. So in the calculus and statistics.
Oh, okay.
And then for the 6th subject, I chose art because I like to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed science and art, so I kept at it. I was always getting good marks for my maths and physics especially, and art as well. For Form 5, I got the highest mark in the country. My art teacher told me.
Wow.
So I was like, wow. So that's when I thought, maybe art is something I should pursue seriously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I thought, being realistic, how can I make a living doing art? So, because I love my science too, I just kept at it. But always made sure I kept drawing and taking art as my fun subject out of the 6 subjects we could choose during high school.
So you obviously graduated. Well, you finished high school.
Yes.
With honours or bursary or
bursary, yep. A bursary, is that what it was?
Yes, A and B bursary. Yeah.
And I have a sister 1 year older than me, and she went and enrolled into health science down in Otago because she wanted to become a doctor.
Oh wow!
And me being very competitive, I was like, I'm going to become a doctor too. Yep. Wanting to make Mum and Dad proud.
Yep.
Want to do the right thing. You choose the right path. So
yep.
I enrolled myself into Otago University and got into health science. Then Mum, out of the blue, said, you should send in your portfolio to Elam School of Fine Arts at Auckland University. And I was like, why would you say that, Mum?
Completely out of the blue?
Out of the blue. She always praised my art.
Yeah.
But I have 4 siblings and we can all draw. We can all draw. We are all good. We all like our science. We all like our maths. And we all can play an instrument or 2. So her praising my art didn't really mean much. But when she said you should send in your portfolio to Elam School of Fine Arts, I was quite hurt initially because I was like, oh, Mum, do you want me to become the poor artist? And my sister Yuki, like, do you want Yuki to become the, the rich, successful doctor and, me to become the poor artist? But she was like, no, you have talent, let's just try.
Yeah. Gotta love mums.
Yeah,
Sometimes
like
they know,
she
right?
really influenced my path, obviously. If it wasn't for that, maybe I would be doing physics or something, like physicist.
Yeah. So mum's obviously a huge influence.
Yes, huge influence.
And what about dad?
Dad's huge influence. So he's just always, same as mum, just always follow your passion, follow your passion. And he's just been always encouraging. But both of them, I can never imagine them separately. They're always like a pack to me, mum and dad.
Yeah. They're like the dynamic duo.
Yes, dynamic duo. And they're both so giving to us kids, and also to the community. So music-wise, they gave so much to the music community. They are conductors at youth orchestra and symphonia, and they had a concert the other week, just last week in Kamo.
Oh, wow.
Well. Yeah. My youngest brother is a violinist, so he was a soloist, and mum still plays piano, so she was a soloist too. But and they actually won the Civic Awards some years ago.
Okay.
For their contribution for classical music in the Northland community.
Amazing.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so they're very giving.
So like a super talented family.
Oh, my parents especially, and my siblings.
You can't set yourself too short, can you?
Oh, I think I was lucky. Lucky that mum pushed me.
So mum recommends that you submit your portfolio to the Elam School of
Fine Arts.
And that's in Auckland. Yeah?
Yes, it's in Auckland, and it's part of Auckland University. And they're quite strict. They go, people can send in their portfolios, and they'll choose about 120 or so students to interview. Then they'll diminish it down to 60 to 80 students that they feel is good enough to take the course, or suitable to take their course. So I was selected for the interview, which I was quite surprised. So I went, but I was quite angry. I remember the trip to Auckland because I really wanted to go to Otago. All my friends were going to Otago. Like I think Whangarei Girls High School, all the students are like, we want to get out of Whangarei and go far away as possible.
Absolutely.
So I was the same. All my friends were going to Otago, and I was like, I want to go to Otago. But Mum was like, you got chosen for the interview. Let's go. So I went, and when we at the interview, I clearly remember telling the one of the lecturers interviewing me, like, oh, so why did you choose Elam? And I was just like, I don't want to go to Elam.
No.
Yes, I was being quite stubborn.
Oh my goodness.
And they're like, oh, okay. But when they asked me about my portfolio, I am passionate about my work. So I'm like, telling them what I was thinking about when I painted this work. And surprisingly, I got in.
You got in?
Yeah, I got in. So I was like, oh, wow, now I have to go.
You actually got to do it now.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
But I was still wanting to pursue my science, and out of all three science, I loved physics. So I did enroll myself into some physics papers too. So for a couple of years, in the first years during university, I studied both science, like physics and fine arts.
At the same time? At
the same time, which became very hard.
Oh, that just sounds crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they're not designed to integrate.
No.
So their timetable clash. Like fine arts, it's 9 till 4 or 9 till 3 every day, studio time as well as lecture and art history. And physics was similar too. So I always had to like sneak out halfway or tell my, tutor, I have to go to my science class. And she's like, betrayer. You're not a true artist. Because at Elam School, they want you to be the artist. You know, they just want you to be the crazy, modern, contemporary artist doing wacky things. You know, they don't want people thinking like students thinking scientifically. So I'm going off to my science class, and the lecturers and tutors didn't really acknowledge. So 2 years of doing that, I had to kind of choose.
2 years. Wow. Okay. And then so you were at Elam School of Fine Arts and doing the physics at the same time. And then you got degrees in both?
No, so third year into it, I had to choose. Both were like 3 to 4 year degree. Actually, fine arts was 4 years degree, and then science. If I just majored in physics, it would have taken 3 years.
Right.
So third year, I kind of had to choose which path to pursue because it was just becoming a bit too much and a bit expensive too.
Very cool. And which one did you ultimately end up picking?
Fine arts.
Nice.
Yes, I think I wanted to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I did pursue physics, I wanted to become a researcher, a professor.
Right. Okay.
And but I see the professors at uni, and it seems like you work your entire life to sometimes not find anything.
Yeah.
And which is romantic, but I thought, well, doing fine arts, I can already do my own thing and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't have to prove anything. It was just more about creating what I wanted to create.
And you get to express yourself freely.
Like, sure, I'll be criticized for it, by my lecturers and tutors and everyone, but I enjoyed doing that more than like physics. Really, I'm still like, I like my physics. A lot of my project during uni, I focus on a lot of science topics for my art, and the lecturers couldn't understand what I was doing, but I was trying.
So I mean, I guess that's really sort of you're trying to figure out your own style.
Yes.
And you're incorporating the different sort of elements of your life.
Yes.
You've got the influence of your parents and their background.
Yes.
Your sort of upbringing as well, and then essentially the split down the middle between science and art.
Yes, science and
art. And then you're trying to sort of at that time merge the two together. Yeah. And then how did we end up with an internationally famous character?
Well, actually, at Elam School of Fine Arts, they don't teach you any fundamentals. So they don't teach you how to sketch or draw, or it's more they give you the time and space to become the artist you're supposed to become. So they want you to do
and you
new
pay,
things, crazy things.
And you pay for that privilege.
You pay for the privilege to give him the space, go there every day and do stuff and get criticized every week for it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I should be paying someone to criticize me, but such is life.
But which was good because I was a very shy girl. I still am inside maybe, but I was a very shy girl, and they teach you to like grow thick skin because they really rip you apart with your work. Why did you do this? Like, who did you reference? Like, why doesn't it matter your art? And you can't have to fight for it. You have to fight for your art. So, and a lot of the time we don't even believe in our own art. Like we only get given 1 or 2 weeks to make a project.
Right. Yep.
And we are poor artists, and a lot of us are scrambling for the material, and whatever we choose to do is what we can purchase at the time or find at a dump. We found a pot of red paint. Okay, my next theme gonna be red.
Yeah.
And the lecturers will be like, "Why did you choose red? What was your reason? What was the artist?" And we kind of had to make up as we go.
Yeah.
But so yeah, lot of just grows you into fast thinker, creative mind. So I did enjoy my time there. I made some good friends. But yes, definitely not a place where we learned how to illustrate or like use the computer, or I think you have to go to like animation school or design school.
Yeah, you learn those fundamentals, right?
But the last year, for the last 3 months of the final year, we get to choose our own project.
Okay.
And for that, I chose to do a graphic novel. And for the 3 months, I just drew. I had a story in my head, and I drew a 100-page graphic novel. I think until then, a lot of the tutors didn't know I could draw, because I didn't want to show that I could draw.
Yeah.
It seemed like it seemed wrong to draw something that looked like something, because we were spending all the time trying to do all this abstract art. But I thought, it's final 3 months, I'm gonna just do what I want. So I just did a graphic novel, a 100-page graphic novel, and submitted that as my main art piece to display at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that got me to graduate with top score, and I received all 3 design awards that year. So yeah,
brilliant.
I must have done something right.
That's amazing. One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artist Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. You've done your university,
Yes.
You've graduated, you've done the 4 years.
Yes, 4 years.
At the Elam School of Fine Arts.
Yes.
And then where do you go? What do you do?
Actually, it was 5 years.
Was it 5 years?
I had 1 year. I just remembered.
Wow.
I changed major. Within fine arts, there's like major of painting, multi arts, and there was design as well.
Yeah.
I was majoring in painting initially. Then
Okay.
I thought painting was too open for me, and I thought
Yep.
if I choose design, there might be a bit more structure.
Okay.
Not sure if there was any more structure, but, but I did change my major.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've graduated.
Yes, I
You've changed your
graduated.
major. You've
Yeah.
now got your degree.
Yeah,
in
Bachelor of Fine Arts. Yes.
Majoring in?
Yeah, I'm majoring in design.
Yep.
And
then
yeah,
where
winning
do you...
awards and everything. So I was like, I'm ready to be an artist.
Yeah.
And what they don't teach you at uni is how to get a job as an
Right.
artist.
Yeah.
Or
Of
what
course.
path is out there beyond uni. Like what they don't talk about that. You know?
Yeah.
They talk about doing project, but not about, real life project and real life
Yeah.
jobs. So after uni finish, you go home because
Yep.
you can't pay rent.
Yep.
So you
yep.
go home.
Yep.
I went
Student loan
home.
runs
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
And my mum and dad were, being loving and encouraging. They knew I did my graphic novel. So they're like, you finish it and you publish it. And I was like, okay, I will. So I had my 100-page, but that was for me, like it was very in early stages.
Yeah.
So I started sitting and doing it. And I did that for about a couple of months. And I was very lost because I was home and mum's coming up every day to my room going, Aki, how you been? Show me your pages. Oh, it's so good. Like she
Yeah.
says to anything that she's been saying since I was like kindy. And that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
I needed criticism. I needed a professional input.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it. And I was very lost. And I was starting to feel guilty. Until then, I had a path laid out. You go to school,
Mhm.
you go to university, you get your
Yep.
degree, and you somehow get a job. So I
Yep.
was sort of like just following the path. But then I realized after you graduate uni, there is no path. And I was very lost.
Yeah.
And just to get some structure back in my life and not to feel so like worthless, I just went back and enrolled myself into doing masters.
In fine arts.
In fine arts initially. So
Wow.
back to Elam School of Fine Arts.
Okay.
And that's when I also, during that being lost for a few months, I also started going on the internet. I wasn't really using internet much back then either. It was year 2004 or 5.
The joys of dial-up.
Still
Yeah.
wasn't using internet much.
Yeah.
I don't think there was. I didn't use Facebook or anything like that. Obviously, no Instagram.
Yeah. I was
No
going to say,
Instagram, kids.
yeah.
No,
for those of you that don't know, dial-up
Yeah.
was a thing
Yeah.
that would make where you'd plug a cord into your
Yeah.
phone, and then it would make the sound of a phone dialing.
Very slow.
And just terribly slow, and
Yeah.
you could download things like music, and it might take a night.
Yeah, it might take.
Something like that. It's the really slow days of the internet. It does exist.
So I think there was Google, obviously. So I think I Google searched, some publisher, like New Zealand publishers,
Yep.
because I was still very small-minded. I didn't think outside of New Zealand. I was like, there must be I was thinking if I want to illustrate books,
Mm-hmm.
because after doing a graphic novel, I kind of knew I wanted to illustrate picture books or do illustrating in the publishing industry, but I didn't know what to do. So I Google searched a bit, and they say you send in portfolio. I didn't have money to make a portfolio, like to print paper and to postage it. So I was like, okay, so I emailed, I went to shops and I looked at the back of the books to find out the publisher's name, and then I typed that into the computer and some email pop up. So I was just like spamming.
Right, yeah.
I was just
You're sort of just sending it out, hoping for the best.
Out networking. Yeah, I was just sending out my portfolio to any publishers.
Yeah.
And I think I sent out about 50, and maybe 40 or so I didn't hear back.
Okay.
And maybe remaining 10, like after a month or so, a few months, I'll hear back saying, "Oh, great work, but no, thank you." Okay. And maybe there were a few that said, "Yeah, we like your style, we like what you're doing, but not right now."
Okay, right.
And I think that's one of the editor was actually kind enough to tell me that we really like your work, but in publishing industry, we work like a year or two in advance. Like we've already got project booked for this year, next year. So maybe in a couple of years' time, we'll come back to you.
Yep.
And I was like, couple of years' time, like I don't have a couple of years.
No, no, not at all.
I was like, I need to do something. So that's why I went back and did my master's. I didn't complete it. I was studying my master's, but this time the drive wasn't there. I wasn't really sure what I was trying to do.
Sure.
I switched to AUT, Auckland University of Technology, trying to get some change in lecture, because I knew all the lecturers and tutors at Elam by then, and I thought I could get different mentors and different students too. There's so little, the community in Elam School of Fine Arts. I wanted to meet other artists, so I changed to AUT and doing my thesis. I was researching about I should know my own thesis title.
It's all right.
Clip this out of me thinking of the subject I was teaching. What was it? Sequential storytelling, meaning art. Sequential story is like comics and books too, like in sequence being told. So I was researching that and finding out researching the difference between Japanese sequential story, meaning like manga, most well known manga, and Western sequential story, which are comics. And I was like studying their difference and why is it so different, what are the similarities. So that's what I was researching. And while I was doing my master's, I heard back from 2 publishers and they gave me jobs. One was Hardy Grant Egmont, Billie B Brown. They said, we've got a series. Would you like to illustrate it? I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And the other was Scholastic, asking if I was interested to illustrate a picture book, which you go shopping. I actually have it here.
Okay. So you've gone through and you've kind of been doing your you've been working on the fine arts but you're not as invested as you were, and then you're kind of doing it and you end up moving from Elam across to AUT. And then you get 2 emails and now
offering me job, offering me contracts.
Yep. Yeah. So obviously it's like, well, this is sort of what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And then you do both.
I did both. I mean, while I was doing my master's, I was starting to pick up side gigs. Even during university time, I was doing a lot of like free jobs for exposure, doing a lot of poster illustrations,
exposure,
t-shirt illustrations, anything for friends, mom, friends, cats and dogs illustration, anything. You can draw. Can you draw my, so and so? And I'm like, okay. And for mum and dad too, because they always have concerts. They're like, Aki, design us a poster. And I'm like, of course, of course, anything that I can do,
happy to.
And some logo design and some graphic design work as well I was doing, but not my passion. Just to make some income. Just try to keep my student low, but low as possible.
Keep it down.
But when I got the series Billie B Brown series job offer and the picture book offer, I was trying to do it all, and I really couldn't. And I kind of had to choose again. There's a time I had to choose. And I chose to just drop out of my master's study and just go into freelancing, which was quite hard to do. I felt quite bad telling my parents that I dropped out halfway. Seemed like I was a failure. Felt guilty to my lecturers that I was, stopping halfway. And they're like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You only got like half a semester left to go. But I think by then I was just like quite... Yeah,
well,
I was
not
ready
into
to.
it.
I was ready to leave.
This is the next stage
if
for
I
you, right?
regret it, I think I do.
You do?
If I was talking to myself then, I'll think at that time half a semester seems like eternity.
Yeah.
But me being at my age now, I'm like, hey, young Aki, it's so little, so little time. But it is hard to say because maybe if I continue to study, maybe I wouldn't have. Produce good
I was going to say, if you'd have continued to study, would you have picked up the Billie B Brown?
I would have, but maybe not good quality of work. Maybe.
Yep.
And the editor did tell me later when they approached me, they did approach another illustrator, and they were testing us both out, which I think happens quite often when they are trying out different illustrators.
Yeah, sure.
So they said, "Are you interested?"
Mm-hmm.
It's based on a girl aged around 7. She's a feisty personality. Can you just come up with some character designs? And I was like so into it. I think I drew like 10 girls and just sent it back really quickly. And they're like, oh yeah. And they just kept coming back to me, and I just kept on sending it in. And later the editor told me like it was your passion.
Now there's a really interesting process behind that, isn't there? Because we've had a look. Before we sort of started in here, you were sort of very gracious enough to sort of show me the evolution of Billie B Brown. And it's not something where you're just sitting down and just scribbling out anything. There's a real evolution. Like you start off here and you may end up all the way over here with something different, because you'll draw something and then you'll submit it.
Yes.
And then there'll be refinements along the way, and then it will kind of go backwards and forwards. How many iterations or versions of Billie B Brown do you think you went through before you got to the one that, people know?
At least 50.
50?
At least 50.
50 versions?
At least 50, yes. Different hairstyles, I'm sure your wonderful people put it on the screen now, but I'll share you the illustrations later.
That's
amazing.
Amazing.
Share the viewers, yes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so I think, about 50, and maybe took about a month or two to finalize on the design.
Yeah.
So it was between the editor and the author, Sally Rippon. I'm sure she had a big say in what the character looked like too. The funny thing was they didn't know. I mean, maybe they could tell by my name, but they didn't know I was Japanese. They didn't tell me, and they didn't know what I looked like.
Sure. Oh,
this was before Facebook, guys.
Before Facebook and Instagram, yep.
So they didn't know what I looked like, and this was published 10 years ago. And when I went to Australia that following year for some book signing tours, they saw me and they told me that I look exactly like Billie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently I did back then.
So they're like channeling a bit of yourself in there,
And they were like, wow. And a lot of the kids coming up to me, they were like, oh, did you just draw yourself? And I was like, I wish it was that easy, because I drew like 50 different girls, I actually didn't want Billie to have black hair. I remember that for a lot of the initial sketches, maybe for the first 30 or 40 girls, I just always did the typical blonde hair or the red hair, the feisty girl.
Feisty red hair, yeah.
And I think it was like the last alteration that were made was the editor said, like, let's make your hair black. Which is coming from me, might be different, but growing up in Whangarei, we were the only Japanese family.
Sure.
Our siblings were the only Japanese or any like Asian student in the school. We stood out a lot. We were like on the newspaper when we first arrived. Whangarei Leader or Northland Advocate, one of them. We were on the front page for not doing anything but just by arriving in Whangarei. You know?
Right. Okay. So you sort of got a lot of attention that really wasn't
I didn't
wanted.
like it.
It wasn't wanted.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I was 8. I didn't. I wanted to fit in.
Be accepted.
Yeah, accepted, fit in. I wanted to look the same as everyone else, sound the same, but I couldn't. You know, I couldn't speak English.
Yep.
And we looked different, and wherever we go, you know, we stood out. I felt like we stood out.
Yep.
And you know, there were name calling here and there. Kids can be cruel, and
Man, kids are brutal sometimes. Yeah.
And mum and dad were fine. I'm sure.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe they could have had their hardship. They would never show it to us.
Yep.
But us 5 siblings, we all handled it in different ways. I remember my sister and one of my brothers. They did it really well. They just turned it into comic. You know, they just laughed
Yeah.
amongst everyone. But I think I was because I was naturally shy, I became more, internal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Wow. And now here you are.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yes.
So Billie B Brown's been out for about 10 years.
12 years? Oh, no,
10
last year.
10 years, 12 years?
Yeah, 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
I should know, but no, 2010 was when the first books came out.
Mhm. So 12 years
12
this
years.
year.
So a couple of years ago, we celebrated the 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 25 books, 25 titles in total.
Yeah.
As well as spin-off series, which is Billie B Mystery, which is when Billie's slightly older and the book is slightly longer and it's aimed at slightly older reading age range.
Sure.
Yes. And
Sure.
there's also a Hey Jack series, which is like based on Billie's best friend Jack.
Mhm.
It's illustrated by someone else, but Billie B Brown was quite popular, and a lot of the brothers of the sisters who read the Billie B Brown books, they wanted to read it, but
Yep.
you know, being quite a girly packaging, maybe
Mhm.
they wanted to make almost a boy version of the Billie B Brown series, so they released Hey Jack series. So that's doing great too.
So how many books again?
25 titles.
25
but
titles.
Books wise, there has been a lot of different binds up treasury, and like this is like a new collection that we are working on now. The first 3 has come out, and I'm working on a 4th one now, and it's just a fully colored version of the Billie titles. So it's still going.
Yeah. And you've also got a new series that you're working on as well,
yes,
right?
Sam Kerr series,
Yeah.
published by Simon & Schuster in
Now,
Australia.
we were having a bit of a giggle before we sat down.
Yes.
And I didn't even know this. Sam Kerr is an actual person. Originally, you didn't know that, and you were you were going through your submissions, the processes you would normally.
Yes.
And then
by this stage, I'm getting work from the publishers, thankfully. And since having kids, I've stopped promoting myself because I was getting so much work, and I knew I had to dial back a bit, you know, having 4 children.
Yep.
So I thought I'll just focus on the publishers and the clients I have now.
Mm-hmm.
But with Sam Kerr, the publisher Simon Schuster, they approached me.
Yep.
This was last year or 2 years ago, asking me to illustrate a new soccer series based on Sam Kerr. And when they worded it like that, I was like, okay, there's a fictional character named Sam Kerr, and I'll be illustrating her.
Yeah.
I didn't, and they actually sent me a picture of the real Sam,
Yeah.
and they said, yeah, like this is, by the way, this is just for your inspiration. You know, can you come up with a character design for Sam?
Yep.
And I just thought they sent me like a stock image of a soccer player,
Not the actual Sam Kerr. Yeah.
that exists in real life. So I just kept imagining this was a fictional character.
Yep.
And just bit like Billie, another 50 or so drawings.
Yeah.
Not knowing Sam exists in real life. I'm so sorry, Sam. But you know, I'm not very much into sports. Like I say, I focus on my art.
Yep.
And yes, I'm terrible with sports. So, and it was getting turned down. The character designs I was submitting were all being turned down, and I was like, oh, okay, it's not going well. And one of the last rounds I sent through, the editor was like, okay, well, we'll ask Sam and see what she says. I was like, oh, Sam exists in real life. And that's when I hopped on Google again and typed in Sam Kerr, and she just shows up. And I was like, okay, you exist in real life.
Yeah.
Then it was very quick after that. I just designed her and got approved.
Nice. And how many books have come out about Sam Kerr at the moment?
So 3 books has come out. I'm working on the 4th one right now.
Awesome.
Yes. And I think 5th one is also in the plans being written up now.
Brilliant. So
exciting stuff.
Sally is a Kiwi author?
No, she's Australian author.
Australian author.
Yep, Sally Rippon and Sam Kerr. And it's also it's been ghostwritten by Fiona Harris, so she's writing with Sam Kerr. So they write the books together. They're both Australians.
Australian as well.
Yeah.
So with those writers not being in New Zealand, obviously you're doing a lot of work over the internet via email and backwards and forwards and stuff like that.
100% almost,
I'm guessing, obviously, when New Zealand went into lockdowns, did that affect the sort of the work? Because obviously you're not going into an office. You know, you essentially you can work to your own timetable and schedule. Yeah.
Yes. So lockdown didn't affect my publishing job, but definitely affected because I used to take part in like school visits, book signings, going to conferences, taking part in, like Armageddon and, was it Overload, a comic convention down in Auckland.
Oh, wow.
I used to, take parts in those because I used to live in Auckland after graduating from university before moving back up to Whangarei.
Right, okay.
So I used to enjoy taking parts in those art events. But, all that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
But now people are doing a lot of things over Zoom.
Yeah.
So now it's
absolutely.
kind of opened up to new opportunities.
Yeah.
Making positive out of the negative situation.
And I'm guessing because you're kind of already in that mode because you're not going into an office.
Yeah.
It's all
so
remote work for you anyway.
Versus like feeling isolated.
Yeah. So I mean, for you, not a lot changed.
No, not a lot changed.
Yeah.
Actually, like Billie has been shortlisted for Yabba Award, which stands for Young Australians Best Book Awards in the past.
Wow.
And in the past, I couldn't go to the awards nights. They invite me, they send me the invitation.
Yeah.
And Billie has won the awards in the past years. And, I can never go. But last year, they included me in as a Zoom session.
Amazing. Congratulations.
So Billie didn't win it, but it was shortlisted.
Yeah.
And the book is shortlisted again this year too. So it's quite cool that I get to be.
Did you get dressed up?
I did get dressed up
from
hip
from the waist up. Yeah,
waist up, maybe pajamas on the bottom. But waist up. And I told my kids to be quiet. Close the door, just clean the room on one side. And, and
much like yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, wow, that's so cool. So, how many Yabbas has Billie won? Just the
I
one?
I should know this.
Or has she won a few?
No, I think maybe one. I know she's won many awards.
Yeah.
But sadly, illustrators don't get informed.
Of
it's always
course.
authors. And I think many awards, same as New Zealand too, a lot of awards are given to the residents or the citizens of that country.
Yeah, sure.
So I believe Sally must have won many, many awards for Billie and her other books. But because a lot of my books are published in Australia and I'm not an Australian citizen, I don't get, given awards.
So, I mean, that's going to lead into a really interesting question that I have. As someone that has been doing this work now for 12 years, and you've got all of this, you've got Sam and that stuff coming up as well. Advice. What if we're gonna talk to the younger artists, the kids that are in high school that are going, I'd love to do illustrating or graphic novels or anything along those lines, or even people that have left school and are trying to figure things out and they're not too bad drawing. What advice do you have to give to those people?
Oh, I have a few. Keep doing what you love. You get good at whatever you spend your time doing, whether it's drawing or riding a bike or cooking or anything. You spend time on it, you get better at it. So if you enjoy drawing, spend time doing it because you'll get better at it.
Yeah.
And share to the world. Luckily there's internet out there, there's Instagram, there's Facebook. You can make websites for free. So you got to let people know that you can do what you do. So, put your work out there. And lastly, get yourself an agent or get a professional help when you get contracts. If you don't understand contract, I never understood contracts, and I still don't have an agent. So that's advice I'm telling myself.
Yeah, almost got to listen to your own advice.
Yes. And I being the artist, I just want to focus on the art. And I don't really like reading through contract. I don't think many artists do. So, but it's very important. When you are doing freelance work, it must be similar to you. You have to wear many hats. You have to be the accountant, you have to be the admin, you have to be the creator, you have to be, you have to be the publicist, and you definitely have to know how to look at contracts. And if you don't get help, because it will affect, if you can make a living off your art or not, because it is hard to make a living off art, and make a living off illustrating picture books. I can do it.
So obviously sort of talking about agents and the importance of an agent, and you yourself admitting that you don't have an agent. What have you got coming up that people should know, but also that prospective agents might also like to see and be aware of?
Well, being a freelance illustrator for over 10 years now, illustrating other people's stories.
Yes.
I'm at a time where I really want to illustrate my own stories. So I've been spending the past couple of years around kids, of course, just doing my own manuscripts and adding my own illustrations and what they call making a mock-up or book dummies of the books that I want to make and present to agents. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So you have you're in the process of designing and releasing, hopefully, your own line of books.
Yes, and because I know the publishing system, what happens inside, it's not like a finished book. It's what they call a book dummy, which is very much in a rough stage. So the stories, laid out, the picture that they're in a rough. And maybe like a 1 or 2 picture might be finalized just so that the publisher know what the final illustration can look like. But there's always room left so that if editors want change, because they usually do,
of course,
and if the publishers want changes can be made. So I'm working hard to get some ideas up, not just one but a few, because I also know that publishers want to represent authors who's got more than just one book.
I'm not going to ask what it's about, because I think it's going to be so much more exciting to see if one of the stories does get published, and then it all becomes because I'm going to get you back on here when that happens. Now, a process like that, how long does that sort of process normally take?
A long time. Like chapter books have much shorter time frame from the maybe it took us 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years to publish, or like the first 20 books.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Whereas picture books, I'll get given a whole year to illustrate one picture book.
Do you have an example of a picture book that you've done?
Yes, I do. Just one. I've illustrated a few, but I don't know. My kids, it must be in their bookshelf, so I could only find one. That one is a Maori edition of the Witchy Go Shopping.
That one there as well.
So that was my very first picture book alongside Billie B Brown.
This is the Scholastic one that we talked about at the start. Yes. Wow. That's very cool. Now that's been translated into Māori, is that correct?
Yeah, into Māori, which is quite cool.
Oh, it's brilliant.
But when I see this, I can see so many, I shouldn't say mistakes, but things I can improve on as an illustrator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
It always brings back memories. Yeah, I was very newbie back then.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to move my water bottle. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think these hardcover books look absolutely lovely. And for those of you at home that can't see it, the book in the center is actually the complete collection?
Yes, actually this one's got 23 books. There's actually 25 books collection as well. Yeah.
So the big one here is 23 books, and it is honestly, it's amazing. We got to have a look at them before we sat down today, and they're really, really cool. Like they're really good quality as well, and they're really lovely and they're really well presented. But what we didn't cover is something that I had no clue about until we were talking earlier. Is originally what manga books look like, and you've bought a couple in.
Yes.
And if you're able to pass me one, that would be amazing. Because this honestly, this blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. Now I'll grab the
big phone book.
Now this one here. That's
the back, I think.
This is the back?
Yes.
Is that the front?
Yes, that's the front. Japanese, I think we open it the opposite way.
Okay.
Left to right.
So this one here, now this is really cool. This one here is really, really thick. It's, definitely a very weighty item. But something like this is a weekly publication. Is that right?
Yes, that one is weekly publication.
This one is a weekly publication. Now, to me, it was absolutely fascinating because it's filled with just so many drawings. The fact that this book here has what do we say?
About 10 to 13.
10 to 13 individual stories in here. So, and it's serialized. So you get to, if you're like, I want to see what my character that I like reading's up to, I've got to go through the middle of the book or something like that. But this is all recycled.
Yeah, recycled paper.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, what art inspired me growing up, I said manga. Growing up in Japan and even coming here,
and this
I
is
always
it here.
loved, yeah.
This is manga. This is very, very cool. And a lot of us are going to know manga in a very different context.
Yes.
And we're probably going to know a little bit more in the
like a book format.
Yeah,
yes.
in the other context.
I think actually most people get introduced to manga in anime format, which is like Japanese animation.
Yeah.
So that's like the third or fourth step. Initially, most manga stories are published in the form of manga magazines that come out either weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, depending on which issue it is.
Sure.
Not issue, but which magazine it is.
Yep.
So this one is aimed at shonen jumpers. So this one's aimed at primary school boys up till maybe high school boys. So all the stories in here are aimed at that, similar to Marvel stuff. So superheroes, adventure, fantasy. And there's one for elementary school kids.
Yeah.
There's one for women. There's one for girls. There's one for businessmen. There's one for, maternity. And all the different, so it's very much like books and novels. The genres they cover and the readership they aim, it's just very broad and like I said, very cheap. I was telling you, it's very affordable.
Affordable, yes.
Something like this will cost anywhere between 300 yen to 500 yen, which is equivalent to $3 to $5.
That's crazy.
So you will see businessmen going into convenience store and buying coffee and manga, and they'll read it while they commute to on their commute to work, and then after they get to work, they'll just leave it on the seat. Or just biff it
for someone else
to read, or for it to get recycled.
Wow.
I mean, because it's so big, and in 1 year you have 12 of these, so you can't, keep in the house. So most people will just recycle it.
Yep.
And once there's enough stories to make one of these bound book, these will be sold in bookshops, and then they'll go back and purchase these to keep in the house.
There's a question I wanted to ask you, and it was a question I'd sort of thought of beforehand, and I wanted to sort of hold off until the end.
Yes.
Billie B Brown has been translated into
about 15 languages. Last time I heard, I was told.
And your love of drawing and background came from manga and children's
anime? Picture books. Yeah, and anime. Yes, anime. It's very hard to be in Japan without reading manga and watching anime.
My question is Billie B Brown in Japan?
No.
You're kidding! Stop it! I would have so thought that it would have been.
No, I'll be too nervous, I must say. No.
Wow.
But I have a feeling in Japan, their publishing system is so different.
Yeah, okay.
And I have a feeling if a publisher wants to, sell their foreign rights for a book
Yeah.
to Japan, I think they have to go through another Japanese agent or something.
Right. Okay.
Yes. And yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, but not there's Chinese, Billie B Brown.
Yeah.
I know. But yeah, not Japanese.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yet.
Aki, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Been amazing. We're gonna get this up on all the social media and all the platforms. Again, thank you so much for being here. It's been lovely to have you here. Keep in touch.
Yeah, keep in touch, definitely.
And we'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, everyone, thank you very much for coming back. Aki Fukuoka.
Yeah.
What an incredible lady. What a journey she's had.
Yeah, for sure, man.
For me, I think the most interesting part about this whole thing was that she's in Whangarei.
Yeah.
She lives in Northland, and she's done all these drawings for these
millions
books.
of copies.
I
sold.
know, over 5 million.
Yeah, it's
over
5 million.
Incredibly crazy. I mean, just to put that into context is ridiculous.
Like she's sold a book to every New Zealander essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Put it out on population.
Yeah, and and the books that she brought in were amazing. The Billie B Brown series, obviously huge in Australia. Translated into 15 languages, and she's got her own thing coming up as well, which is just I'm so excited to see how that plays out. You can find Aki on the internet. I highly recommend having a look at her website. She's also on Facebook and Instagram. How would people be best to search for her?
So she said you can search for Aki by looking up Aki Art. So
Aki Art, super simple, AKI and then ART. Definitely highly recommend checking her out because, man, she so cool.
Yeah.
Man, and, you can definitely get a sense for the work that she's done. And, in the video, we've also got the concept drawings that kind of started from Billie B Brown, from when she first got offered the opportunity.
So yeah, we've pretty much got an insider look into how she works as well, which is really cool and really unique.
Yeah, and it was just so fascinating as well to hear her side of things from her dealing with the publisher and how she initially got found, and then kind of her journey, and then where she's at now in terms of wanting to do her own thing too.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for checking us out. Really appreciate it. Andrew, where can people find all of this good stuff?
For visuals, they can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Northland Artist Conversation. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts at Northland Artist Conversation. And if you want to email us, it's hello@northlandartistconversation.co.nz. So
yeah, man, nice and simple.
Get in there.
Yeah, we've kept it like really, really simple, and I think that's a huge advantage. So Northland Artist Conversation for everything. Across the board. Just keep it simple. We're going to have some more guests coming up soon. We're in the process of getting a whole bunch of people that really want to sit down and talk with us. So if you have emailed us, fantastic. We've had to actually get someone to sort of manage that communication, which is crazy. So Marino Begman, she is doing all the communications and handling all the emails and sort of setting all the interviews up. So if you get an email from her, yes, she is absolutely 100% part of the team. And we've got Catherine Tasker, who's going to be doing all social media as well.
Yep.
So, that's going to make life infinitely better.
Yeah.
It's going to make everything more streamlined as well. So
definitely allows us to get in our kind of roles a bit more.
Yeah, sort of figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. So from Mark Kelly.
Yeah, and Andrew McKenzie.
Thank you very much for checking us out, and we will see you guys next time.